Hello, I'm Kim Warren. I've been a strategy professional all my working life, first in the corporate world and then teaching for many years at London Business School. But I'm not happy with the state of strategy today. I'd like to tell you why that bothers me and what I'm trying to do about it. First and foremost, strategy is badly done. We all see the big failures that make the headlines, of course. The subprime mortgage fiasco and bank failures that caused such misery to so many around 2008. The big acquisitions that go wrong like eBay and Skype or Daimler Chrysler, and the profit reversals when companies make lesser mistakes. But there's a lot more disappointment we don't really notice in the large fraction of companies that struggle on, never really managing to make progress and never achieving what they could. What really upsets me about this is that these avoidable problems cause huge harm to everyone. Customers are badly served, employees lose their jobs, even their careers, and investors lose money, often in very large amounts. But the rest of society suffers too, whether through loss of value in their pensions and savings or in higher spending that governments have to make to sort things out. The puzzle for me is why so much poor strategy is done. We've been researching, writing and teaching about it for half a century or more, and I'm not the only one who's concerned about this. Leading strategy professors write worried articles about the relevance of what they do all the time, and conference conversations often turn to the question of why people mostly don't use what gets taught. My conclusion, explained in the book The Trouble with Strategy, is that managers don't use what we teach about strategy because, to be frank, most of it isn't very useful. Much of the rest just doesn't work, and some of it is downright dangerous. For as long as I've been involved, strategy teaching has focused on what we call a company's positioning. Basically, who to serve, with what, and how to do it in a way that makes money. That's an important question, of course, but the answer very rarely changes. Strong companies simply do not keep changing their mind about what they do. Skype, BMW, Amazon, McDonald's, Exxon, Ryanair and others picked a promising position long ago and have relentlessly driven and developed it ever since. What strategy tools don't tell us at all is anything about how to actually deliver the kind of success these leading corporations achieve. And the success management investors want is not the profitability ratios on which our strategy knowledge seems to be based. It's strong growth in cash flow sustained over long periods of time by a business that has little risk of going wrong. So if managers don't get help from strategy in figuring out how to grow profits, what do? In most cases, it seems, they ask finance for help, but that just makes things worse. The message, keep margins up, cost tight, maximise profitability, strangles business development and paradoxically exposes you to more risk of failure when things get tough. Of course, smart finance people aren't quite so dumb as to push this message to the limit, but there's still a widespread tendency for organisations to starve themselves of what they need for the sake of short-term profitability. All this convinces me that we need a fundamental overhaul of the principles on which strategy is based and of the tools required. This is where I get to. First, recognise that strategy is about building performance over time, not hitting ratio targets. We know enough already about what makes for a strong competitive positioning, but nothing about how to turn that strong position into the powerful sustained growth in cash generation that drives value for investors. The second point is that it's the whole system that delivers performance. Powerful organisations are more than the sum of their parts, the people, the products, the customers and capacity and so on. Those parts work together, reinforcing each other's growth continually over time while generating the outputs we want, whether that's cash flow or something else. You can't split out how much business value comes from R&D or from training or from customer service, for example, any more than you can say how much of a racing car's speed comes from its wheels or its gearbox. This means that management's first task is to design the system that can work well. Then they need continually to make decisions and take actions that develop that system and keep it on the road. The critical decisions in this process are about what to add or cut. People to hire, products to launch, customers to win, skills to develop, capacity to build, and so on. These are the choices that dominate companies' action plans and actually translate strategy into marketplace performance and cash flow. It's tricky though, because these choices can have very long-term consequences, years or decades in the case of staff or capacity, for example. And it's tricky because everything depends on everything else. Armed with these principles, I tried to figure out a method that might help management deliver better and more reliable performance from their strategy. And it turns out that the tool we need has been at our feet all along. Developed at MIT in the 1950s by Professor J. Forrester, it's called System Dynamics. It's already used for a lot of tough business challenges like project management, supply chain design and product development pipelines. I think the reason we didn't spot the potential of this method for strategy is that it seems rather technical when you first come across it. So what I've done with Strategy Dynamics is translate the essentials of the method into a language and procedures that any manager can understand and work with, using regular business and financial information that they already recognise. The method creates a living, quantified model of a business that functions and performs in the same way the real organisation does, and for the same reasons. Sales go up and down, for example, because customers are won and lost or because they buy more or less, not because of some abstract idea about winning market share. The models show precisely where actions and decisions affect the business's development and how it generates performance from period to period. You can use small models to address challenges in specific functions or to tackle isolated issues. Or you can make a larger model of a whole business to design its strategy and steer that strategy out into the future. This can be as detailed or as high level as you need. Even better, you can test the impact of things that might happen to you, a recession, say, or the arrival of a new competitor, and plan ahead how to deal with those events. Now, you may think I wanted to throw out concepts and frameworks that we already know are reliable, but that's far from the case. Indeed, the method breathes life into many concepts we already find useful, whether it's the experience curve that drives down unit costs, or the customer funnel in marketing, or the building of critical capabilities across an organisation. And when we get to finances, the method is completely compliant with the principles of accounting. This means that Strategy Dynamics offers a simple, consistent language across all subjects and parts of the business, so everyone can be truly on the same page and understand how decisions they make interact with everybody else's. I've worked on endless cases with this method now, and it just works. It's built on rock-solid theory of principles, it captures simple, tangible things everyone understands, it's quantitative, and it's practical. Now, although I've done what I can to simplify the method, there's no avoiding the fact that there's a lot going on in any but the simplest businesses, and the human brain soon runs out of the capacity to intuitively figure out what's happening. So just like other situations where things get complicated, computers can help. But it turns out that our favourite tool for business analysis, the spreadsheet, is just hopeless for this task. You can't figure out what's causing what in a complicated system by peering at rows and columns of numbers or by debating the isolated charts and tables we try to summarise from them. So we've developed a simple online software called SysData that anyone can pick up in a few hours. And that makes it easy to create the living business models you need, whether for your whole organisation or for a key function. Like any worthwhile approach, Strategy Dynamics has to be done right if you're going to get any benefit from it. So I've developed a large amount of learning material which I've put into courses to help you use the method accurately, with lots of examples to get you started. And because I feel it's so important, that material is also available to anyone else who wants to teach with it. There's much more about all this on my own website, kimwarren.com, and my business website, strategydynamics.com. And this and other videos can be found on YouTube. Simply search on the phrase Strategy Dynamics.